My guest is
Doug Gustafson.
And he's from HomesNOW, which is in a process right now of moving their encampment from one location to another neighborhood. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of HomesNOW and where they've come from and where they are now. So, Doug, you want to give me a little history on the HomesNOW project?
Oh, yeah, of course. So HomesNOW Not Later we're a nonprofit organization, and we started in June of 2017 with the goal of ending homelessness one person at a time. It was after the last presidential elections. We felt like at the national level that there wasn't any point in supporting candidates, so we wanted to support an actual goal instead at the local level that we felt like needed to be solved in Bellingham, or at least helped and is a problem in Bellingham that we could actually make an impact in. And so we wanted to build tiny homes. We wanted to set up a tiny home community to get people off the streets. Emergency housing is how we see it. Because rent keeps going up and the benefits or wages have remained flat or gone down a little for a lot of people. So it's really a 1 + 1 = 2 reason as to why more people are becoming homeless in that, especially on the West Coast where rents are higher, like in Seattle, like in LA, and a little bit up here in Bellingham, even though it's not as bad. Anyway, we first got noticed when we started doing the activism phase, which was when we were trying to get the city or get any kind of entity to work with us to allow us to use land in order to build a tiny home community. At first, because we didn't have a track record yet, we weren't necessarily taken as seriously at first. But the thing that got us on the map was we camped out on City Hall for 2 weeks. So at first it was just two people from HomesNOW that camped for the first night, myself and the former president, Jim Peterson. And after a couple days, we had about 50 tents on the lawn. And these were all people these weren't house people. These were people that were homeless, were sleeping in tents around town. And they decided to come to City Hall and set up their tents there. After this happened, we were evicted. But after more than 2 weeks, 18 days, after that occurred, it set the gears in motion 1 month later, by the way, to set up a new ordinance that allowed for tiny home communities and tent encampments to exist in the city of Bellingham. That was not allowed before. And so even though there's quite a few restrictions and regulations on that, it opened the door for us to get started. And the first site that we were given in January of 2019 was the Winter Haven tent encampment, which was behind Bellingham City Hall, in the parking lot of Bellingham City Hall. And that lasted for around 3 months before we moved to Safe Haven, our second site. And at the time, it was only tents, but we wanted to do tiny homes from the start. The city said, you can't do tiny homes, but you can do tents. We're like, okay, it's better than nothing. So we did the tents, and then in February, the winter snowstorm hit and the tents weren't working because it was too freezing. So we actually had to put up our residents in hotel rooms and stuff. And so after that happened, we moved to our next site, Safe Haven, and we're like, hey, tents don't work. We need tiny homes rather than tents. And so we started, so the city softened their stance more on that and started letting us build tiny homes on that second site. And then through a big fundraising effort, we were able to raise the money to build the rest of the tiny homes. And after we moved to the current site we're at now, which is in Fairhaven, 210 Mackenzie, anyone's able to come by if they want to visit. And now it's all tiny homes and we don't have any tents. So what happened after we got set up at the new site, at the site we're at now, very shortly after we got set up, is that I discovered inappropriate actions of the leadership of the former president of HomesNOW. I'm the chairman of HomesNOW currently, but I'm one of the original co-founders. Jim Peterson is the former president. He was the other co-founder. And Jim kind of ran the show for most of the time that HomesNOW has been around, even though I always helped in the background with like the paperwork and legal stuff. I discovered that, and I wasn't looking, long story short, Jim embezzled money. And that ended up being a big shock. But when this happened, that's not what I was originally looking for. I didn't actually notice that at first. What I was investigating was mistreatment. So Jim and two other board members were verbally abusive to residents. I started to notice it started getting weird. So I was like, I got to do something about this. I've got to investigate this. So I informed them that I was doing an internal investigation into their activities as being inappropriate. As I investigated further and interviewed each resident individually, it turns out that Jim was trying to pressure one of the residents to start a relationship with him when he was already married. It was like really, really weird. And at the same time, there was verbal abuse going on. And then when I was interviewing each of the residents individually, all of them were asking about money. Like, but what about the money, though? Is the money being spent in the right spot? And I'm like, well, I think so, because we've only taken in like $150,000 and we have 20 tiny homes and we're able to pay for everything. And it seems to all add up. And then they said, well, it's just that Jim and Rachel like to go to the casino for fun, and they come back with $400 bongs, and I don't know where they're getting that money. And then I'm like, oh, I better look into the bank statements and see. And I'm the computer guy, so I had access to the bank account because I was one of the original co-founders, but I wasn't in charge of the money.
You were trusting.
Yeah, right. I was too trusting. Yeah. After I looked into the records, it didn't actually show up with the business names on some of that stuff. It showed where money was taken out of ATM machines. I did notice Jim reimbursed people in cash, but anyway, I looked up the addresses of the ATM machines because that's all that it shows in the bank statements. When I typed those addresses in, they are located directly inside the casino and directly inside various marijuana shops. So after this occurred, they had left. Jim and Rachel had left the site and for a week. The chief of police came down. We meet with the planning director and the chief of police every week. They came down, and Chief Dahl noticed that something was off, and he asked me what was going on, and I just told him what was going on straight up. And he told me, okay, your investigation found a lot, and your investigation is now over. I think this is enough to be a criminal offense. And so our investigation begins. So over the course of a month, they investigated our whole organization top to bottom, and I provided the bank statements. I was cooperative and everything. At the end of the day, they arrested Jim and charged him with that crime. He got bailed out. The trial still hasn't happened yet, but he is no longer part of the organization, and the other two board members that took part in verbal abuse and things like that were also removed from the organization. So that happened in October. It was kind of a wild roller coaster. But after a few months, things smoothed out. And now I think our organization is stronger than ever. We implemented new financial controls. And what do we mean by more financial controls? We got the help of a professional accountant. And that accountant trained Carol. Carol was the treasurer, but she wasn't trained in how to do that properly. So we had a professional accountant train her on how to do that properly. And as well as three of us are inputting information into the books. So there's at least three people checking out the activity of the other two. So, and that's worked pretty well. We also release financial reports every month. So every single month, you'll see a report on our website that says, financials for January, February, March, whatever, every month. And it'll say what's coming in and what's going out. The only way that our organization could survive is if we're 100% transparent.
Don't we wish our government was that transparent?
Well, yeah, because when we found evidence of improprieties, the only way
jumped on it.
Yeah. The only way we could save our organization is by exposing ourselves.
Right.
There was people telling us, no, don't talk about this. If this gets out, it'll destroy. No, I'm like, no, if you hide it, it's going to destroy your organization. And so it was uncomfortable, but you got to rip the Band-Aid off, and we're in a stronger place now for it. And
so let's move past all of that.
Yes, I agree.
Let's talk about residents.
Yes.
How you feel, and this is your subjective opinion, how you feel residents benefit from becoming part of the tiny.
Well, they benefit because if they're not on the street and they have a stable spot, a spot to call their own, people stabilize. So there's nobody that's worse off. Yeah, sure, everybody has their own issues. You do, I do. But those issues are made 10 times worse if you're out there on the street. So it provides a stable living situation. But B, there's a community there too. So residents work together. In a way, it's kind of like living with 20 roommates, but residents work together to make sure that the village is operating smoothly. Members from the overall community from all walks of life come and visit, and people have a chance to network. And so it brings people that are typically removed from the community back into the community. And
it gives them an identity.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to mention is that there have been some changes since the shakeup of HomesNOW. So one of the problems with the improprieties of HomesNOW is that the organization was too centralized. It went through two people for all decision-making processes, and the residents didn't feel like they had a voice. And they didn't want to say anything because they were afraid of losing their housing. So now the changes that have been implemented include having it be more self-governing. So we encourage residents to solve their own problems and come up with their own solutions to how to run their camp day to day. And that's been working a lot better than trying to tell them what to do, right?
Right. And there's no drugs and alcohol.
Right. It's drug and alcohol free. But again, the way that it's enforced, we don't do random UAs or anything like that. Right. We enforce based on behavior. So it's all about the behavior. So if somebody's acting erratic or they're
obviously drunk.
Yeah, right. Or stumbling over or whatever, and they're not acting like themselves, then whether it's drugs or not, the behavior is the part that's the issue. And if there is an issue identified, we want to get people the help they need. It's not a death sentence, right? So.
And how do you guys keep the camp?
The residents themselves have a sheet in which they take on certain duties depending on what it is. So some residents are fine cleaning the bathrooms. Other residents want to do the garbage. So they agree amongst themselves who's going to do what, and then they do it.
Kind of like going to summer camp.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, when my kids were kids, the kids went to summer camp. They had to sign up to take out the trash or do the dishes or do lunch duty or whatever.
And that's how it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a community. That's a village for sure.
Yeah.
So where do you guys want to go from here? I mean, I know that you're getting ready you're going to move this to this new site, but you can't have any more tiny homes, right?
We have room for more tiny homes.
Right.
The city has said, just stick with your 20 for now. But if after a while everything's working great, then you can add a few more. But for now, let's not add new variables while we set up this next site you're going to, and that's fine. But we would have room for like probably 5 more. But our long-term goal with HomesNOW is to set up more of these villages. I mean, these are extremely low cost. Keep in mind, each tiny home has full electrical and heat and insulation. Mm-hmm. It's just like the inside of a small bedroom. It's just the basics, but each of these units costs around $4,000 to build, and the cost to operate the entire site altogether, all 20 tiny homes, is around $1,200 a month. And the reason why it's that low is because we don't have paid staff. HomesNOW is volunteer only. Volunteer. And even though we're on a shoestring budget, we're able to cover our costs. And this is an extremely low cost option. It costs less than emergency shelters. If you had more of these villages on vacant land that's not being used for anything, you would mitigate the need for emergency shelters at all because the emergency never occurred in the first place.
So you guys have to use like porta potties and shower truck.
Yeah, we have a shower truck, and that's how we do our showers. Porta potties we use because there's not sewer at a lot of the sites that we've been hosted at. We'd like sewer, and in fact, half of our monthly cost is the porta potties.
Mm-hmm. So if you could get into a place where you could actually have a portable restroom, a proper restroom that could plumb in. Right. Then that would drop a lot of your costs.
Yes, it would. But at the same time, we can still afford it. We do have, and that's the other reason why it's affordable, is because you have the shared kitchen and the shared dining area and the shared bathrooms. Mm-hmm. If you had every tiny home with its own, that would get expensive very fast. But our long-term goal is to set up more of these and hope that others pick up the model, copycat it. And we basically are happy to prove that it works. And
I think this last year has proved it works.
Yeah, but it can work better than it does now even.
Right. Oh yeah. So do you have people who, because of that stability and having a place to call their own and a place they can get clean and a place they can eat, do you have people who are able to get a job and transition out of the job?
Oh yeah. We've had that happen quite a bit. We have around a 30% rehousing rate. So around 30% of the people that have come in have gotten permanent housing. We have some that have been with us for a long time, but that we're happy to have them. We don't have any like hard time limits or anything,
Right.
but we try to do what we can to help people find permanent housing. The nice thing about it too is that we have a lot of former residents that have come back and volunteered and like, hey, we're going to be the overnight staff tonight. And it's really, that's what makes me the most happy is seeing that someone that we initially helped comes back and helps us and help more people. So it just ends up being like a really nice snowball effect.
I think that's important. I've done the same thing when my kids were younger and I took foster kids. I would get involved with a community organization that helped me with the foster kids. I would go back and help them later on because I felt committed to that.
Right.
And I'm sure they're the same way. It's like helping hands. You know, we all move up by lifting people up, not by squishing people down.
Yeah, I totally agree.
The new location.
Yeah.
If people have questions from that neighborhood that are going to be adjacent.
Yes.
Could they contact you guys and come for a walkthrough tour? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'd love that. Our current site is open during the day to the public. Some people can stop by anytime during the day, 8 a.m., 6 p.m. If they do stop by, try to stop by on a sunnier day, because on a sunnier day, people are more out and about.
Right.
If you come on a really rainy day, they might be more cooped up in their tiny homes. And so just make sure it's a nice day when you come to visit. People can come anytime and visit and check out the site for themselves. Any resident on site that's there at the front desk or whatever will be happy to give anyone a tour who might have questions or concerns and hopefully would want to donate too. Right.
And you guys have a Facebook, so people could follow HomesNOW on Facebook. I do. I recommend that you do. And also, do you guys have an email that people can reach you at?
Yeah. If anybody would like to reach all of us on the board at once, you can email admin@homesnow.org. And if you want to email me separately or whatever, my email address is doug@homesnow.org.
So let's talk a little bit more about that move. So you guys are going through the public comment process.
Yeah, at the moment.
Right. So what does that mean?
It means that when the city is going to allow us to use land for something like this, it's a requirement that we put up public notices that say that, hey, this land is going to be used for this purpose. And so if you have any problems with it or concerns with it, this is where you would send a letter to the city and indicating whether you support it or not. And so, and everybody that comments has to be listened to, so, and replied to basically. And so whenever we've set up previous sites, we've had to do the same thing. And you get some letters that are like, I don't want this in my neighborhood.
Of course. Not in my backyard.
Yeah.
Always.
Right. But what we found is that you get pushback beforehand, but then once you're in there, people see what it is and they see that it's not what they thought in their head. And then all resistance goes away at that point.
When do you guys anticipate, if everything goes well?
Yeah.
When do you guys anticipate moving to your new site? Well,
our permit is over at our current site, April 30th, 2020. So officially, it would probably be May 1st, right? Officially. But at the same time, the city has been generous and giving us some extra time to move everything if it's not 100% done by April 30th. So we'd have a week or two to finish up after that. What we're hoping for is to get access to the new site as soon as possible before April 30th, though, so that we can set up infrastructure and get everything ready. And then when everything is ready to go, then move the houses is the last step. And then how long do you get to stay in that new spot? We're hoping to stay for 2 years, which is the longest that the ordinance allows for. So legally, there's no way it could ever be more than 2 years. But the way that it looks like it's going to go down is that we're going to get a 1-year permit with the possibility of a 1-year extension. Right. They reserve the right to not extend until a year has passed. So, but it looks like it's going to be the full 2 years. And is there any running water on that new site? There is. There's running water at our current site, and there's running water at that site. And so you don't have to truck in water. No. And what we do is, and we don't have sewer, but we have the next best thing. We got some utility pumps that we put in where any water gathers, like under the sink in a bucket or whatever. And these utility pumps pump all the water into our gray water container, which is on a trailer. And then we take that to be emptied on one of our vehicles.
Have you guys thought about a community garden?
Yes. And we're going to have a community garden inside Unity Village. And we're calling the new site Unity Village 2.0.
I like it.
Yeah. So we do plan to have community gardens in there. We're also conveniently placed right next to the current community gardens. And the city has given us a plot in that garden to do what we want with.
But if people wanted to, once you get moved, if people wanted to donate containers, soil,
yes,
because you're going to want to have your gardens be portable.
Yes.
So if you do have to move in 2 years, you know, because you can garden in a tub,
right?
Laundry tub, anything that'll hold soil and water. So people could help you guys have more fruits and vegetables, well, not fruits, but more vegetables and stuff in the summertime by providing gardening supplies.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us overbuy. A lot of us buy a ton of stuff for our yard, and then you've got a bag or two left over. I'll bet you guys would be happy to have that.
Oh, we'd be very happy to have that. So if anybody wants to help with that, we would greatly appreciate it.
And a lot of us grow way too many seedlings.
Yeah.
You start your tomatoes and your beans and all that, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't have no place to put all this. so yeah, because community gardens now, especially for a group like this, would be an amazing way to get food.
Yeah. And not just that, we have some residents too that really enjoy growing plants and doing and being track of that and stuff. And so it gives some people more to do that they want to do. And that also helps stabilize and improve the situation.
Right. That's what I was thinking is that, and you've got amazing sunshine there.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect place to have a garden.
Now, one other thing we're going to add too is we're going to add a workshop. So if people want, I would consider it kind of like the equivalent of like a wood or metal shop. And so if people want to create things or build things.
So you're going to make a maker space.
Yeah. Yeah. So to speak. Yep.
Yeah.
And
give them something to do. So they're not just
hanging out, but at the same time, we're not cracking the whip and making.
Right. But you also may end up with something they may end up. And so, which means community makers could donate their time to help teach people those things once you get it set up.
It provides a space to do that. Yeah.
Right. So they need to go follow them on Facebook, guys.
And also our website. Our Facebook has more like activity going on, like on a daily basis. Right. But if somebody doesn't use Facebook, also check out our website, homesnow.org. And that has most of the important announcements and stuff like that too.
Excellent. Yeah, because a lot of people are walking away from Facebook.
Yeah.
But Facebook is kind of nice for those like immediate. Yeah. Here's our immediate need, or here's our immediate event, or whatever.
Yeah, and it works. We use it because it works. It's not like I like everything about it.
No. But I don't think any of us like everything.
But we've been able to use it as an effective tool. So
right. But having a website is important, and having it regularly updated is important. Yep. So there they go. There you go, folks. You've got more than one way to contact these folks, more than one way to check out what they do, and look for ways that you can get involved. If you don't have $5 in your pocket to throw in the kitty, that doesn't mean that you can't come out and lend a hand. We do have on our website, if you go to homesnow.org/volunteer, we have a volunteer form to fill out, and that puts you into our database. We have check boxes for like what your skill sets are and stuff. And so when we really need the help in certain areas, we'll straight up call you or email you. And we have, 300 people on our volunteer list. So between the 300, we usually find at least a few that will help in any particular area. But again, don't let that stop you. You're free to stop by anytime and get the first step. If you don't know how to get involved, is to come down and hang out and meet the residents and kind of come down multiple times. And then it becomes apparent after speaking to people for a while, like what's needed and what's not. And so that would be the first step I'd recommend to people that just don't know how to and want to get started. Well, Doug, I appreciate you coming in today more than you know. And hopefully as this process moves through, maybe we'll sit down and talk about when you get closer to the move, about what you folks are going to need, how the community can help you out with that move, because that's still a couple months away. So I want to keep that door open that you can come back and we'll talk about what the community's needs are going to be to get that move to be successful with as little headache as possible to get that done and get set back up so people are less disrupted. Yeah, I agree. Sounds good. All right.
Thanks for listening to KPNW